Well, the 132nd nation may be applying for membership in the UN soon. Bangladesh, the Bengal nation, was proclaimed today in what for 24 years has been East Pakistan. Its Pakistani garrison surrendered last night. Prime Minister Mrs. Gandhi of India informed a cheering parliament in New Delhi. She also declared a unilateral Indian ceasefire in Kashmir in the west to begin at what will be 9:30 Eastern Time tomorrow morning in the United States. President Yahya Khan of Pakistan said he would fight on to victory. However, with almost one-third of his combat troops now prisoners, that's doubtful. We have film from the subcontinent and this report from ABC's George Watson.
It's premature to talk about peace tonight. War still continues on the Western Front, and soldiers on both sides are dug in for more fighting. These Indian soldiers are tough Gurkhas, famous for their fighting skills, and in this area they repulsed a major Pakistan tank attack. The Pakistanis left behind several of their made-in-China tanks, but tonight there is news of another big battle in this same place. Indian troops today did hear their victorious leader, Indira Gandhi, as she broadcast the news of Pakistan's surrender in the east.
The West Pakistan forces have unconditionally surrendered in Bangladesh. Dhaka is now the free capital of a free country. The entire nation rejoices in this historic event. All nations who value the human spirit will recognize it as a significant milestone in man's quest for liberty.
Now the Indians are free to concentrate their forces on the Western Front, and the odds against Pakistan are even more overwhelming. But Pakistan's President Yahya Khan also went on the radio today and broadcast an appeal to his troops to keep on fighting.
Assalamu alaikum.
He is saying, in effect, that you can lose a battle and still win the war. But most observers view Pakistan's position as hopeless, and they think this speech was mostly belligerent bravado and that Yahya knows he is beaten. If so, the war could come to a halt, but only if Pakistani troops stop shooting on the Western Front when the Indian ceasefire starts tomorrow morning. This is George Watson, ABC News, reporting.
We'll have U.S. reaction to the India-Pakistan development. The White House said today that the possibility of a ceasefire in West Pakistan was an encouraging turn in the Indo-Pakistani situation. White House Press Secretary Ron Ziegler, speaking at Key Biscayne, where the president is staying in touch with developments, told newsmen, if a ceasefire comes and the fighting is stopped, then our objective has come about. The White House is less than happy, however, with a letter that Indian Prime Minister Gandhi sent to President Nixon yesterday. ABC's Bill Gill reports from Key Biscayne.
The White House considers the Gandhi letter to Mr. Nixon to be at least frivolous, if not downright silly. Mrs. Gandhi complains to the president that Washington should have demanded that West Pakistan free the Bangladesh leader Mujib, and claims that this alone would have prevented war. News Secretary Ronald Ziegler rejects that claim out of hand, and once again he lays the blame for fighting squarely on the Indian government.
Well, you know as well as I do, the way to prevent war is not to start up the tanks, put bullets in the rifles, and fire them. That's the way war is prevented. I think you are also aware of the many diplomatic steps the United States has taken over the last months to work toward a development of a climate for discussion to solve the problems in South Asia.
Would the freeing of Mujib have stayed the hand of India?
That's difficult to say. I don't know what action the Indian government would have taken if this had taken place. But we still feel, and we do feel, that the way to deal with problems of this type is to sit down and talk about them, to reach political solutions without war.
That biting reply is the only response Washington intends to make to Mrs. Gandhi's letter. The White House will now sponsor a resolution in the UN Security Council endorsing a full ceasefire in all of Pakistan, while softening its demands for a full and immediate withdrawal of all foreign troops. Ziegler left open the possibility that the U.S. 7th Fleet may be used to help evacuate the defeated Pakistani troops. A full review of future U.S. policy and strategy in the India-Pakistan problem is now underway in Washington. Bill Gill, ABC News, Key Biscayne, Florida.
The Soviet Union reacted quietly to the news of India's victory. The government newspaper Zvestia reported the East Pakistan surrender under the unemotional headline, quote, "On the Indo-Pakistani fronts." Communist China reacted with a warning to Russia and India contained in a formal statement that, quote, "He who plays with fire will be consumed with fire." China also charged today that 7 armed Indians intruded into China last week on the Sikkim border, and she lodged a strong protest with the Indian embassy in Peking. The possibility of big power involvement in the Indo-Pakistani war is still a dangerous element in the situation. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ali Bhutto, the man who stormed angrily out of the UN Security Council yesterday, talked with us today. ABC's John McVeigh asked him if Russia and China may become further involved if the conflict continues.
Well, I would say so. It would be inevitable. It's the subcontinent is inhabited by almost 600 million people. It's important part of the world. If there has been war and conflict in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam, in Cambodia, and Laos, in those countries for years and years, the future of the subcontinent, I think, is equally important, if not more. But that's, of course, not for us to judge. That's for the world to judge, and for the great powers to judge, and for other nations to judge. We can't talk about our own importance, but I'm sure that there will be responses if this stalemate continues. And as I said yesterday, we are really beginning a new page, a very ugly new page. We're starting with the first sentence of it is horrifying, and I don't know really how it will conclude.
One of the illusions that written history creates is that the end of a war ends a chapter. In fact, an ended war usually creates new alignments, new problems, and therefore is the beginning of a chapter. So it is with the India-Pakistan war now apparently ending. Consider what has happened. A new nation, Bangladesh, is created, the 8th most populous country in the world. As it faces harsh problems of independence, amid wreckage and poverty, its drift will be towards the many native communists who alone have the organization to meet those difficulties. For all her gratitude to Russia, India remains a liberal democracy and does not want another communist and potentially hostile nation on her border. More serious, Bangladesh, East Bengal, borders on India's West Bengal, India's most unruly, pro-communist, separatist province. The prospect of the two Bengals, who have a common tradition, working together against India's central government is one of Mrs. Gandhi's continuing nightmares. Indeed, one reason India moved into East Pakistan was to prevent the chaos there from infecting her own communist-leaning province. What I'm getting at is, though India now much admires Russia, she needs U.S. involvement more than ever as a counterbalance to the vastly increased potential for a communist separatist movement in her own subcontinent. U.S. policy in the war has been flawed, but by moving conspicuously with friendship, with aid, with whatever else constitutes an effective American...